painting in Nomad seems like a very analog way of painting. It's almost like in the real world we're taking paint and we're applying it to a model, and it's not as simple as that. There's two ways that we would do it in the industry. We'd have vertex painting and texture maps that we've painted up. Now I'm going to show you what vertex painting is and why you just can't use it without doing something to it when it comes out of Nomad. So let's dive in and have a look at what that actually means. There are two main types of painting or surface detailing that you need to be aware of when you're looking into being a CG artist. So you need to know about texture painting, which is on a texture map, or anything that's applied to an image and then wrapped around a model. And that doesn't really apply in Nomad. That's not something that you're going to see a lot in Nomad. But what you will see is the other thing, which is called vertex painting. Now, in other programs, you'll hear it called something like poly painting in ZBrush, or it's very similar to a system called weight painting in a lot of other programs. And what I'm going to do this week is just show you what that actually means and why you can't just take this out and apply it in Unity or Unreal without some extra work. So what you're seeing in front of you, it looks like it's clay. Now we know it's not clay because it's made up with a Matcap, which is a material made up of an image. So these are actually images that are showing us the surface. So the lighting is baked into that image, and realistically it's quite a limited system. We could use physically based rendering, and that would be exactly the same in terms of the surface would still either be a vertex paint or a texture map. Now, I will leave it on in fact, no, I won't leave it on PBR. I'll do what I said, which is we'll leave it on Matcap. And what we'll do is we'll leave it on this skin coloured one for a moment until I just show you something else. So let's work through this very slowly. I'm going to turn on wireframe down here at the bottom, and I'm going to look at the topology panel. Now, what the topology panel is telling me is there's 98,000 faces and there's multiple subdivision levels. So if I come down from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, we're now back down to the base subdivision level. And now you can see that this is made up of polygons. Now, if this was a texture map and there was texture on there, it would still look almost exactly the same, just a little bit blocky. But with vertex paint, it's going to look very different. So I'll quickly just paint something on it, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let's go with red, and let's go with 100% of the intensity and about halfway down with the brush, and we'll just paint something. Symmetry is on, it doesn't really matter because I'm just trying to show you how this works, and we'll just paint that on. Now what you see in there is it seems to be painting more towards the joints rather than in the middle. And what that's actually doing is it means that the point that's at the joint where the edges meet, that's called a vertex or a point. And I'll show you in the next model how important that is. But it looks like it's painting the polygon. And the data is actually being given to each of the points. So as I fill all of those in, you'll see it looks like it's painted right across all of those polygons. But then look at the edges, how it's blurred. And that means that the points around, let's zoom right in, the points around here, here and here are all getting colour information. So for each polygon there's going to be 4 vertices or four points, and each of them is going to know I'm red, or I'm pink, or I'm red. And then somewhere in the middle is the blend of those 4. And you'll see that because it looks like on this one slightly above here there's like a 2 triangles. That's because this one at this top right corner is white, this one at the top bottom left is red, top left is red, bottom left is white. So it's giving you that almost triangular effect. Now remember that, and we'll go on to a new model. So what we'll do is we'll go up to here and we'll say new, So we're in scene and we want box. But what we want to do is, before we validate it down here at the bottom, we're going to take all the subdivisions down to just, basically, let's just try that, which is 2. Take constant off so we can have a look at it. And now you're going to see exactly what I mean in some great detail. So we'll do validate. I'm just going to change the background to the colour a little bit lighter, or a different colour, so we can really see the difference. Let's just change it to our orange, okay? And I'm now going to change, you can follow me on, later on when you're doing this. I'm going to change the Matcap to just pure white. And why have I done that? Because now you can really see what's going on. So I'm going to change the, let's change the outline selection to black, make it nice and thick, so we can really see what's going on with this model. Okay, so go back to paint now, and we'll choose the red again, and we'll go 100% intensity again, and we'll just go, let's just paint in the middle of this polygon. So if this was polygon painted, if it was truly painting the polygon, let's see what would happen. Well, nothing's happening. But what happens if I go nearer to the points? You can see what's happening there. So the points at that corner are getting the data, and because it depends on how hard I press, you can see now that this one on the left has got 100% red, and this one on the right has got 100% red, and it's blending out to all of these different ones. Down here, down here, down here, up here, and all the way around. So if you want to go and paint up like this, that edge, that now, each of the 4 that make up that polygon has got each of the points has been told that it's got to be red, and then it blurs out or blends out to where the other points are. So you can see now, if you now do blue down here, watch what happens. So let's do what we just did with the red, but we do it down here, 1 point, 2 point, 3.4 points. Now look at what's happened. So I've told all 4 points around that square there to be blue. Now look at this middle square now. The bottom 2 are blue and the top 2 are red. Therefore, the gradient in between has given us this cerise or purplish colour, going all the way from red to all the way to blue. And that clearly shows that it's not the polygon, it's the points that are carrying that data. We'll prove it again. Let's just go with a bright yellow. And we'll colour this edge here. We'll colour this edge here. See what's happening? As I go to 100% of the colour I've chosen, it blends out depending on where it is. So it's different here in this yellow square because it's got blue at the bottom, red at the top. And you can see a colour gradient going all the way. It's really causing this polygon here to be a real mix of colours. In fact, it's going greyish because it's got white in there, red in there, yellow. And let's do this bottom one as green, just to finally hammer this point home. So if I just paint this vertex here on the edge green, you can see what's happened straight away. So green to blue gives us a blend green to blue. Blue to yellow. Now it hasn't given us green then, and that's how our RGB colours, there are some complexities in colour, and sometimes you'll find it going grey before it, it's not like mixing real paint. So what you'd expect is yellow and green giving you, yellow and blue giving you green, but it doesn't work like that here. It does in some cases, and you can see that we are getting something of a green tinge here, but that doesn't really matter because we're not looking at that. If we want to do all of this entire right hand side as green, it's simple. You just colour the 4 vertices and everyone around the edge. If it's at 100%, that entire wall now knows it wants to be green. And if you zoom all around it, you can see it blurring out to the next, wherever it meets the next vertex. So now that you know that, now you understand why it's important to have really high resolution polygons or models. to get the data, to get it to look accurate. So what do I mean by that? So let's go up here. We're going to subdivide here. So watch, if I just hit subdivide, and that's timesed it by 4, so every polygon gets times by 4. So we'll do it again. Subdivide it again, and subdivide it again, subdivide it again, and then delete the lower. That polygon now, that object now is made up of a lot more. So how many overall? Says it there. So it's 13,000 faces, 13.8 thousand faces. So now if I paint red in the middle, let's zoom right in and do exactly the same thing. So 100% intensity, and I just paint the red. Now you can see exactly what I showed you on the cube happening there. It's blurring out to the edges, but we're not going to be zoomed in like that. We're going to be zoomed out like this. And we're not going to have the wireframe on. We're going to have this. So what's happening now is that effectively looks like we are painting. And it looks as though we're just painting on a surface. And 13,000 is actually quite low for when we're sculpting. We would normally be something like, let's subdivide again, delete the lower. So we're now at 220,000. So look how small the polygons are now. And this is normally what you'd be seeing in ZBrush and Blender, and obviously here in Nomad. And Forger as well, the other iPad tool that we use a lot. So now, turn the wireframe off. And just zoom in a little bit. And now we go still 100% red. And now, because we've got so many polygons, now we can draw almost super thin lines, and it looks like we've got really cool thin lines, but the same thing is happening deep down. Look what's happening. It's exactly the same. The green is going into the red, and it's giving us that color. Zoom out and you can see it better, and it looks like, if you understand the term anti-aliasing in Photoshop and how we get how fonts are rounded, and how we basically have not just a black and a white image on a font, we'll have a grey around these edges. You can see how that's looking smooth to our eye, because there is a blend between the green and the red. And it gets even more complicated, because if you now start adding in alpha maps, and I start painting with alpha maps, but I do, if you go up here to the settings and change it to grab dynamic radius, and then watch this, I'm going to pull this on the surface, it might look like it's adding you a texture map, but it's not. What it's doing is, it knows that map, but if you zoom in and do what we've done again and again, you can see that it's still doing the same thing. And it can't do it where it's really zoomed, so it can't do it really small. So as you can see there, it can't, it's not enough, there's not enough granularity. There isn't enough polygons to be able to render the effective shape from that alpha. Let me just find a very, very basic alpha. So here's a circle, a black circle with a white background. So it's trying to do it, and it's getting close, but look at the stepping and look at the effect there. So that's why having a super high-res model is really, really what it's all about for texturing. Because if you don't have that large amount of polygons to work with, you're not going to have it looking like you would expect it to look. So let's flood fill that for a moment. So we'll go back to painting, and we'll do paint all back to white. Now, if I'm doing that on a very predictable grid that's made from a cube, what happens when the surface gets a bit erratic? So why would it get erratic? Well, you could be doing this, which is multi-resolution, delete the lower so we know it's frozen. Well, how about this? How about remeshing it? So if I increase the voxel resolution, in fact, bring it down a bit, really, don't need to go too high, and hit remesh, that's given us quite predictable quads, and then it gets a little bit messy on the corners. It's still nearly all quads, or I think it might actually be 100% quads on here. But let's go higher. So we'll increase that resolution, remesh again. Now we're super high res, but with that slightly unpredictable mesh on the corners. But if we now go back to paint, and paint should be exactly the same. So we need to go back to a different color and start painting. Come off the dynamic radius and come off the alpha as well. Just literally back to the white square, and there you go. So even though it's not predictable like a normal, not like when it's been a subdivided cube, it's still the same process going on. And actually, that erratic, the polygons that are erratic there are more how we're going to have them in most of our models. Again, what do I mean by that? So if I'm using clay and I now sculpt on this surface, so what we might need to do is come off that Matcap for a moment. So I'll go to one you could see a bit more. And this is what we would do to sculpt. So forget that it's on a cube. We might sculpt, eyebrows, a nose. We might even do, where the eyes are going to go. We might do a mouth. Smooth that down. And then we'll use something like the crease tool just to give us a little bit of definition. So that will be more like what we would normally be sculpting on, and we can remesh that, use the button at the bottom, that's remeshed it. And now when we paint, so go back to paint, because the surface is quite erratic now, and if we put the wireframe on, you'll see it, it's turning in all different directions. Well, it makes it less predictable, so it makes it even better. And if you now just use your intensity lower, which we haven't used yet, really, we've kept that 100%, the blurring is in not just in the way that the vertices talk to each other, but it's also in the amount of colour. So I'm not giving it as much colour. So that's pretty much how it works in every program. That is what Vertex Painting is. What you might be expecting, or what you might want, is for that to be a texture map. So for it to be a texture map, you have to then convert it. So what we'll do is we'll go, let me switch it back to a more predictable model, and then we'll do an export. So here you go, I've switched back to an earlier version. We'll delete the lower, so we know that we've got this red, this green, this white, and the white on the back. And we'll export it now. So let's do an export to OBJ. Let's export the selection, it doesn't matter because there is only one thing, and export the colors and export OBJ. And we'll save that to files. And we'll just save it in our Nomad projects, and we'll call it Vertex Colors. Done. And save. So let's take a look at that in some other programs. And then what we'll also do is we'll skip forward. And we'll save another one, maybe this one, and we'll do the same, export that. Export, exactly the same settings, save to files, we'll call it, just call this red ball. So we've got two things to look at. Okay, just to prove the point then, we're in ZBrush 2021 now. We've got the wireframe on. And if you want to get rid of the colours of polygroups, if you just come down here and hit fill, that'll fill it so you don't see the multicoloured polygroups that you sometimes get. And that's exactly the same as it is in Nomad. So each of the points has got the colour, and it goes across to these other points, and it blends. So the one point there of red blends across to the three others that are white. So let's have a look at the other one that we did. There's the cube, and exactly the same thing's happening there. We've got this blue spreading into the red, which gives us this purple look. Now, what does that mean when we come out of Nomad? Because you can't get a texture map out of Nomad, and we want this texture to go on to something in a game or a VR or an AR experience. So we have to make that into a texture map, and you can do this in Blender or whatever your other major program is, but I'll do it in ZBrush to show you it can be done. So first of all, we need a UV map. So there's loads of quick ways of doing that in ZBrush. So the easiest one is go to something called UV Master, which is over here. If I just make some new poly groups, so I'll select this front here, Control W makes that a poly group. I can turn the poly painting off for a moment just while I do this. Do the same for this side, and I've made that 1 and 2. I can hide those, so there's just 2 of them, and then I can split it top and bottom as well, like so, and that'll give me 3 individual ones and 1 big one going around. Might not make a lot of sense to some of you who are new to this, but bear in mind this is a very common thing that you'll have to do if you get into this into a little bit more of a production way. So all we need to do really there is say poly groups, which will mean it will UV it by poly groups and just unwrap. That's the simplest way to do it. And what that's done is if you come over here to UV map and hit morph UV, you'll see it's just given us a nice UV map like so. It's not lined up correctly, but you can easily go through and just line it up however you want that. It looked like it was bumpy there because it's set to there we go, that's without the bump, so that's a complete flat UV map. Now what does that mean? So you can go back to your layer, you can go back to your poly painting like so. If you remember, it was like that. We will have to have more resolution, so we'll just it's Control and D in ZBrush, so that's times it by 4. That's now nearly 900, nearly 3,500, 14,000, 55,000. You can see now we're up to nearly what's that? Nearly 250,000. So that's a lot of polygons there, but the color has now blended more because we've given it more polygons, and then we simply just go to say capture that, so it's texture map, and we say UV map first, give it a 2K, so that's 2048 by 2048 map, and then texture map, and we say create from new from poly painting, and then instantly we get a texture map. We can clone that and that will go out. Now I've done that really fast, so you could line that up a lot better. There's lots of ways, don't judge me on my UVing and don't judge me on my texture map, but that is a way you can grab a texture from the Vertex Paint. So that is a true texture map now. And a way to test that is the texture map is actually on the model there. So if I do this, which is turn off the poly painting, you see nothing happens because we've got a texture map over the top of it. Now, if we've got a texture map and we go down the resolution, so down 1, down 2, down 3, down 4, and all the way back down to the base, now look at it. That isn't now doing it from the vertex or point to point. That is a true texture map that is actually applied around the whole sphere. And that's what you need for your game or wherever you need it going forward. So this is just ZBrush's way to do it, but more than how to do it, I wanted you to understand how you do it from Nomad to any other program. So we've got it out as an OBJ and it's come with the vertex colors and we've converted it to a texture map. So that's a very, very simple explanation of how that process works. And you can go and explore that now in other programs. So go and take a look at it in Blender, which is a free one, which is probably the best one for anyone who's on a budget. And try it in Maya and Cinema 4D, and you'll see how simple it is. You probably, if you don't know those things that I've just taught, then you're probably not ready for those other programs yet, so don't worry about that. And if you are, and if you're now looking to get something out of Nomad, then you're going to have to learn this anyway. So I really hope that's helped. If you're liking what we're creating, then give us a thumbs up on the video, and don't forget to leave us a comment about the content and what you want to see more of. If it is something that you're liking, then please subscribe to the channel. We upload on a Wednesday and a Friday, and if you hit the notification bell and set everything to on, then we'll just send you notifications when we upload on both of those days. I hope you're enjoying the channel, and thanks for coming along with us, and see you on the next video.